Welcome again to Teacher's Corner. From time to time, we all need to sharpen our skills. Behaviorism, as you know, it really looks at changes by association, learning by association. Behaviorism defines learning as change, permanent change, by associating with the environment. Primarily, we want to take you through behavior modification steps that can help you in the classroom management. From time to time, we come across students that we want to behave in such a manner to effect good learning, effective learning. As an introduction to the various psychologists, we'll be speaking with some of our various proponents of these different theories, namely Ms. Teresa Smith.
So I'll be looking at B.F. Skinner. It was Skinner who coined the term operant conditioning. This, he says, is a changing of behavior by reinforcement which is given after the desired response. He believes that behavior that is reinforced tends to be repeated or strengthened, while behavior that is not reinforced dies out. Skinner identified three types of responses. These are neutral responses, reinforcers, and punishers. Neutral responses are those responses from the environment that neither increases or decreases the probability of behavior being repeated. He also went further to look at reinforcement. This can be either negative or positive. Positive reinforcement, he says, strengthens behavior by providing a consequence that an individual finds rewarding. So we'll take an example. A teacher will reward students for the timely completion of assignments, and this is indeed positive reinforcement. Negative reinforcers. This is the removal of an unpleasant reinforcer, which eventually leads to behavior being strengthened. So then, you look at an example. Student will lose 5 marks of every assignment that is submitted late. Punishment, he says, on the other hand, is defined as the opposite of reinforcement, since it is designed to weaken or eliminate a response rather than increase it. It is important to note, however, that it is sometimes very difficult to distinguish punishment from reinforcement, but one should always remember punishment weakens behavior while reinforcement increases behavior. Skinner therefore proposed that the way humans learn behavior is much the same as in which animals learn. So we'll then look at how Skinner's approach can be applicable in today's classroom, and we look at the contingency contracting. Now this is a contract between a teacher and a student.
The teacher identifies the desired outcome, the target behavior, and it is only after that targeted behavior is achieved that the reward is given, and that reward, when given, strengthens the behavior.
And that is how B.F. Skinner operant conditioning is applicable in today's classroom.
Now we will turn to Mrs. Colleen Edwards, and she'll take us through one of the very more well-known theories, Pavlov.
Ivan Pavlov was a Russian scientist whose work with dogs are influential in understanding how learning occurs. Through his research, he established the theory of classical conditioning. Pavlov was a behaviorist. He focused on observable behavior. The most well-known of his experiment involves the study of salivation of dogs. Pavlov identified unconditioned stimulus and response and conditioned stimulus and response. For the unconditioned stimulus is the person arriving to feed the dogs before the salivation as a result of their presence had begun. And the unconditioned response was for the dogs not to salivate. The conditioned stimulus becomes the person arriving to feed the dog, which stimulate a conditioned response. And the conditioned response becomes salivation at the site of the person. Let us talk about the classical condition in the classroom. In reality, these techniques are also useful in the treatment of phobia or anxiety problems. Teachers are able to apply classical conditioning in the class by creating a positive classroom environment to help students overcome anxiety. Pairing an anxiety-provoking situation such as performing in front of a group with pleasant surrounding helps the student learn new association. Instead of feeling anxious, the student tension would go away and the child will learn to relax or calm. Another way to apply it, if teachers are consistently caring and encouraging, students will begin to associate school and studying with the teacher's encouragement, and the school will elicit comfortable and safe feeling in students. Thank you.
This would be very useful in taking care of phobias, as my colleague said, so that, like somebody with an exam phobia, you could do exam questions during the course of an ordinary day, so the persons would become more attuned to doing exams and no longer be afraid. Roundabout now, we'll have to bring in our proponent, which is, as we say, the father of behaviorism, and that is John B. Watson.
Let's talk about John B. Watson. Now, he's considered to be the father of behaviorism. That's why we're here. He believes that behaviors can be measured, they can be trained, and everything and anyone can be changed based on the environment. One of the things he indicates that learning is based of all behaviors that's acquired through conditioning. And as my colleagues would have mentioned before, that conditioning, it occurs within the environment. Behaviors believe that response does shape the behavior of particular stimuli. One of the interesting things that John Watson did, he did an experiment with a child, and what he did, he introduced the child to animals such as rats and rabbits, and the child was responsive. Then he introduced noise to the child with the rabbits, and he recognized the child was more terrified. And what he says, based off this experiment, if you create a particular environment for a child, they will respond. So as teachers and as learners, based off the environment that we create in the classroom, then your child or your students will be able to respond accordingly. So based off Watson's view, that he believed, based off creating the correct environment, he can train a child to either be a lawyer, a doctor, or even a thief. He says based off an individual's genetic makeup, regardless of their personalities or their internal thought, anyone can be trained. And he also talks about this nature versus nurture debate. And based off that also is applicable within the classroom. Which side do you agree with?
Now, we have seen that for behaviorist psychologists, it is about learning via association with the environment, and it has to be contiguous. In the case of Skinner, the targeted behavior has to be achieved before the reward is given, the reward strengthens. And with Pavlov, the stimulus comes before to get the targeted behavior. With Watson, his experiments gave us psychological responses, psychological learning, psychological changes, whereas with Pavlov, you got physical responses to the learning, which was the salivation. With Skinner, you get it after you get the targeted behavior. Very important for application in the classroom, noisemakers in the classroom. You could raise your hand so they all know that you need them to be quiet, and the persons who are not quiet, they get the names on the board, would get them to continue the behavior of going towards quietness where they can listen, and learning would be effective. If you have any questions, email us at teacherscorner@gmail.com. Thank you very much.
Don't know much about history, don't know much biology.